Welcome to Beyond the Needle, the Aesthetics Business Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Ruse. I'm a former clinic manager turned digital marketing freelancer, and I've had the privilege of helping dozens of aesthetic practitioners across the UK and beyond grow their business. So I know firsthand just how challenging it can be to build a successful aesthetics practice in today's competitive market. Each week, I'm here to share real, actionable strategies and bring on expert guests to help you level up, attract more patients, and build a standout brand. Let's turn your passion into a thriving business together. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Needle podcast. Now, it's the first episode of 2026, so I thought what better time than now than to create an episode talking all about my predictions for what I think is going to work really well in 2026 on social media, the things that I think are going to really rule, take over, and where I think people need to be putting their focus to ensure that they continue to grow this year and get the most out of Instagram and other social media platforms as tools to reach more of their target audience, drive more leads and inquiries, grow their brand awareness in a way that feels really successful. Because I think a lot of people have noticed over the last 6 months or so that what once was working very well on social media doesn't quite have the same effect anymore. Consumer behavior is changing, algorithms are changing, the way we consume content is changing. And I think that we all really need to understand that in order to get the most out of our efforts. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that today. And I'm also going to be talking about how to do a little bit of an audit on your own social media accounts to give it a bit of a glow up for 2026, to make sure that you've got all the right things in place so that you're really going to maximize your success. So let's get into it. Grab a notepad, grab a pen as always, and take lots of notes. And I really, really hope that you find this episode helpful. If you do enjoy this podcast, just a little reminder, please do remember to subscribe and leave me a little review as well. I really do appreciate it. Okay, let's get into it. So as I said a moment ago, it does feel like social media has changed over the last year. And if you feel that way, you're right, it has. There isn't one specific thing that has changed. There's been no big platform collapse. Instagram is still one of the most used social media platforms out there, as is TikTok. But the way that our content is shown to people has changed. The way that people consume content has changed. Posts that would have performed really well a year or two ago now often feel like they fall flat. Engagement feels harder to predict. Growth feels a little bit harder to get. And it often feels like, I think for many people, that they're doing more work for less return. And that is because the relationship between people, platforms, and brands has changed. A few years ago, social media was built around following. You built an audience, and for a lot of people, it was quite easy to build an audience when it came to aesthetic practitioners and clinics. A lot of clinics really grew back in the day just through posting amazing before and after pictures. There's a lot of clinics that I know of, some of which I've worked with, who once grew from posting amazing lip filler before and after photos, and they grew quite big audiences just from that alone. But that is pretty hard to do these days. And when you posted a piece of content, your audience would see it. The majority of your audience would see it. But now platforms are built around discovery. What gets shown to somebody is decided by what the system thinks will hold their attention in that moment, not necessarily by who they choose to follow. So that means that businesses have far less control over who sees their content, even if they've spent years building an audience. You can do everything right, you can post consistently, you can grow your following, and still struggle to reach people who have already said that they want to see your content by following you, because they're not necessarily going to see the content that you're putting out just through the way the algorithm works now. And at the same time, people have changed how they behave online. They're still on social media, but they're just not hanging out as much in public feeds anymore. More people are active in the DMs, communities, group chats, and in other areas of the internet like Substack, which is a platform that is gaining a lot of momentum at the moment, and in smaller spaces that feel more community driven and less performative. They're consuming, saving, sharing, and discussing content in places that brands cannot easily see or measure. So social media feels a lot more scattered now, and that's why engagement can sometimes feel inconsistent and why it might be harder to build momentum. And also, that's why so many businesses feel less in control of their marketing than they did a few years ago, even if they're posting more or posting what they feel is better, higher quality types of content. Now, the good news is it is still possible to grow. It is possible to turn your social media channels into really effective sources of marketing for your clinics. But you just need to understand that the model has shifted. And once you understand the changes and the way people are consuming content now, it's much easier to get the results that you're looking for. So let's get into the specific changes that I'm seeing and what I predict is going to work well this year. So one of the biggest shifts that I'm seeing, especially with service-based businesses like aesthetics, is that people no longer connect with logos. They really connect with people. Now, this is something I've said for a long time, but I am definitely seeing this shift more at the moment. And what I'm seeing working particularly well for people is that very personal, human-driven content when it comes to engagement anyway. Now, this doesn't mean that educational content around specific treatments or concerns, putting a post out there about jowls or skin laxity or dark circles under the eyes, doesn't mean that those types of posts aren't important or are a waste of time to do, but it just means that you need to be getting the balance right. And your content, like I say, cannot just be filled with before and after photos anymore. And it cannot just be educational content anymore, because everybody is posting educational content. The majority of practitioners who are marketing their business, marketing their clinic, marketing themselves, are posting educational content. So you have to find another way to stand out from those people. Yes, the educational content is important. It shows people that you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, that you're an expert in your field, all of those things. But in order to make somebody choose you over Sally down the road is to make them connect with you as a person. So once upon a time, we were taught to build brands on social media that looked polished, minimal, professional, clean logos, perfect grids, very aesthetic. And for a while that worked. But when everything looks slick and perfect, it doesn't feel authentic and human. And people are tired of that perfection on social media. People don't connect with that. They don't want to book a clinic. They want to book a person. They want to know who will be assessing their face, who will be holding the needle, who will be making decisions about their skin. They want to feel a sense of familiarity before they even step through your door. And that is why brands are now putting their teams front and center. And that doesn't just have to be founders, but, nurses, therapists, receptionists, coordinators, the people patients will actually meet. When someone sees your front of house, your nurse, your injectors, your skin specialists on Instagram, it removes that sense of uncertainty and it makes your clinic feel real and not just like a perfect polished website. And this matters so much in aesthetics because trust really is everything. A patient might follow you for months before booking. They're watching how you speak, how your team comes across, how you explain treatments, how you handle questions. They get to know you as a person, and they are very quietly deciding whether you feel safe enough for them to go to. When your brand is just graphics and offers and there's nothing really for them to connect to, when the content that you're putting out is just before and after pictures, graphics, educational content, there is nothing really for them to connect to. But when your content shows real people, real voices, real stories, real experiences, patients start to feel like they really know you. And that's what builds emotional connection. And emotional connection is what turns a follower into a booking. This doesn't mean that you need to suddenly turn into a lifestyle influencer. It just means letting people see parts of your thinking and your experiences and your story that sit behind your work. So on social media, that might look like explaining why you turned a patient away from a treatment, or talking through how you got to where you are now, or sharing your own experiences with your own skin and what's worked for you and your own skin struggles, or talking about your struggles as a business owner and how you overcame them. One type of content that I'm seeing really perform well at the moment is carousel posts. I think carousel posts, and I'm still talking here about that personal connectional content, so not necessarily educational carousel posts where you're talking about treatments or concerns, but people are moving away from reels a little bit, especially when it comes to personal content. And what I'm seeing work very well are carousel posts where it might be like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, whatever, pictures, in that carousel slide. And the first picture is like a picture of you, for example. And what tends to work well in terms of pictures here is they're not professional pictures. They're things that you shot on your phone. They're very authentic, like candid shots that you might have taken of you on a walk or you in the mirror, or, you know, just very natural pictures from an iPhone, because again, that's easier for people to connect to than a perfectly polished professional shot of you in your clinic. And it will have a good hook at the start. So, for example, one that was trending recently at the start of the year was lessons that 2025 taught me. Or, you know, other similar ones could be like things I'm not taking in 2026. Or one that I saw an aesthetic doctor do was, I don't believe in new year, new me, but I do believe it's the perfect time to stop, clear out and reset. And then each slide had like a different picture of her doing something with some text over the top about what she does to reset in the new year and how she sets herself up for a successful year ahead. These types of posts where it's like a series of photos in a carousel post with a good like personal hook at the start that people can relate to, or that tells people that it's going to be something a little bit more personal to you, they're performing very, very well at the moment. So this is something that I definitely think you should be integrating into your content strategy for 2026. If you want to grow as a business on social media this year, you need to accept that showing parts of you and showing your face more has to be a part of your strategy. Like, we are no longer in a space where we can hide behind before and after photos, treatment content. Yes, as I say, that will always be important. That should always be part of your content strategy, but it shouldn't be the only part of it. Founder-led content, team-led content, faces, humans, this is what people want to see. This is the kind of content that is driving the most engagement at the moment, and I don't think that that's going to slow down anytime soon. And I think the sooner that people can accept that and push themselves, and I know that it's not easy for some people, but push themselves out of their comfort zone and just think, you know, this month I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to, you know, if you need to, have a little look through your explore page, have a little look at what other practitioners are doing that you admire or you think works quite well, and think about how you can put your own spin on it, and just pick one thing, one topic, one personal type post that you're going to do this month if you find it hard, and do that. And just set yourself a goal. You're going to do it, you're going to post it, and once you see how well that does and how well people connect to it, and you'll probably get patients that come in and say, oh, I love that post you did the other day, and people will make comments to you, and then that will fuel your confidence and enable you to do more of that type of content. But I cannot stress enough how important this human content is for growing in 2026. It's something I'm seeing more and more people doing, and it's the types of content that I see perform the best in terms of engagement. You know, like I've said before, engagement, likes, you know, comments, whatever, that's not the only thing that you should be looking at when it comes to how successful your social media efforts are. That's not the be all and end all, but it can really help the algorithm push you out. If you're putting content out there like that you know is going to perform well engagement wise, it helps everything else you post get pushed out by the algorithm a little bit more. It helps your content get put onto explore pages or the content on people's homepages who don't already follow you. So it helps you get seen. This needs to be part of your strategy this year. And like I say, it doesn't just need to be about parts of your life. Not everybody feels comfortable sharing that. I think, you know, if you're a mum or a dad and you're in aesthetics and your target audience, you know, a lot of your target audience are mums, you know, are parents, creating content about that, about, you know, how you juggle life as a busy working mum or a busy working dad, things like that, that people can connect to, that's a bit more personal to you, but you know your target audience will relate to because they themselves are parents and they're busy working parents. That's a quite a nice, sometimes easy type of content to integrate into your strategy, because it will come naturally to you and it will resonate with your audience. But it can also be about talking about treatments that, you know, have had the biggest effect on you, or things that you've learned in the 5 years you've been working in aesthetics, or something you wish your 20-year-old self knew, and you can relate that back to skincare or aesthetics or something to do with skin or aging, whatever you want to. talk about sunbeds or tanning or whatever, and you can relate it back to what you do. So it doesn't always need to be personal, but just integrating your own experiences and stories and opinions into your content a little bit more. And when someone watches you consistently, they start to understand your standards, who you are as a person, and they see that you are thoughtful, that you care, that you prioritize safety, that you are another human being just like them, another mum, another dad, whatever it is. And that's what builds authority now. When your personal brand is strong, you are not just another clinic on Google Maps. You're a known name. You become a familiar face. You become someone that people feel connected to, and that makes it much harder to be replaced by the clinic down the road that is cheaper or newer or offers the latest trending treatment. So, in your strategy, founder content should be a key pillar, and that should show up in the reels that where you talk to camera, the carousels, like I just explained, where you kind of story tell a little bit, your Instagram stories where you explain what you were doing that day or you show behind the scenes, and even your answers to common patient questions. You know, if you can integrate your own experiences into that content a little bit more, it makes it feel more personal, less educational or promotional, and it helps people connect to it more. This really is how you turn your social media into something that is much more powerful than just marketing. In 2026, the strongest clinics won't feel like businesses on social media. They'll feel like communities, places where patients recognize their faces, know the names, and feel part of something, which I think is really, really important for people now, you know, where people are spending their money, they're paying much more attention. If they feel connected to you and part of your community, they'll be much more likely to become a long-term returning customer, because that sense of belonging is what keeps people loyal, even when there are cheaper options down the road. So I think I've given lots of ideas of how you can bring that personal content into your strategy a little bit more, and the types of hooks and things that you might want to talk about. But just to give you a few more ideas that relate more to what you do as an aesthetic practitioner, you've got decision-making content. So, for example, why I said no to this treatment today, 3 reasons I might refuse to treat you, 3 things you don't need to apologise for in my clinic. And that's where you might talk about things like, you know, you don't need to apologise for not using a consistent skincare regime, you know, and you would just like expand on each bit a little bit, not knowing what treatment you need, all of those kinds of things that are fears. You know, think about the fears that people have before they come to see you. You could talk about, like I say, the lessons that you've learned since becoming an aesthetic practitioner, or your journey over the years, which can often make a nice carousel post. So where you started versus where you are now. So that could start with like a photo of you graduating from university, your first job in the NHS, exploring aesthetics for the first time, training, and take people through your career to where you started to where you are now, with a little bit of context on each slide. You could talk about what running a clinic has taught you, what you tell your younger self about skin, aging, career, business, whatever. That can always make a nice post. Treatments you wouldn't offer, things people won't find in your clinic. You know, all of those types of things can be quite nice content hooks that then allow you to show a bit more of your personality and your experiences and who you are as a person. I also think when it comes to that more personal human content, trends, like the more funny kind of entertaining trends, are going to be more and more important this year, especially when it comes to clinics. So I know that trends aren't for everybody, and it can feel a bit silly to record yourself miming to a sound. That's definitely not for everyone. It doesn't suit everybody. If you are a practitioner and your account is you, essentially, this might not feel right for you. For some people it does. They really enjoy the trends. They find them, you know, that it suits their personality. They find them quite funny and a funny way to educate people on certain things. If you don't know what I mean by that, those kind of like entertaining, funny trends, just have a scroll through your Reels feed or your TikTok feed and you should get a good idea. They're probably one of the most popular types of Reels content to put out. You know, recently we had the John Hamm dancing trend that kind of took over, where it was, you know, it would start off with the creator, and then they would kind of like look away from the camera and it would transition to John Hamm dancing in the nightclub. That was a really big kind of trend recently. And people can use those types of content to relate and connect with their audience. So, putting something on the video, like in terms of text, the feeling you get when you X or, whatever that people relate to. So it's a good way to connect and relate with people that way. And I find that these can work particularly well for clinics where you've got lots of team members, and those team members, though, whoever they are, the practitioners, estheticians, skin therapists, aren't necessarily confident talking on camera. And also it's quite hard when it's not your own business, they're just employees. It's not their business. It's quite hard to motivate teams to talk on camera, right? Because it's not many people's favourite thing to do. So I think a lot of clinic owners struggle to get other members of the team involved when it comes to content. But this is where trending content can be a bit of a game changer, because often, especially if it's a couple of team members can film one together and it's funny and it's quick and they don't need to talk, people are much more likely to want to do it. So I find that for clinics, this is where we often get a bit of a compromise when it comes to video content, because people are happier to do the trends and team up and do with a colleague than to have to speak on camera. And they're a good way to humanize your clinic, show people that you're not a scary place, that you've got a sense of humor, that you're human, and to also make you look approachable and friendly. So I think if you're a clinic, this is really, really important. You should be integrating those trends, that more entertaining content, into your strategy. If you are a sole practitioner and it sits right with you and you feel comfortable filming those types of reels, it can work very, very well alongside your talking videos and your more personal content where you're talking about your experiences and your opinions and things like that. So trending content, I mean, it's very, very hard. Once upon a time, you used to be able to go viral from trends very easily. That's not the case anymore because there's too much competition out there, too many people creating these types of videos and jumping on trends. But the goal, like I always say, is not to go viral. It's to connect with the right types of people who are going to potentially become paying patients. So I would say approach these trends with a different goal, and that's more to connect with your community, to show that you're human, and to increase your engagement. So what I'm seeing work well for a lot of accounts now, and what I think will become bigger and bigger in 2026, are these signature series that you as clinics and practitioners can create. So this is something that you do repeatedly and consistently that makes people think, oh, I saw their last video on this. I want to see what they're going to say in this one. And people start to connect that type of content with you, or they know it's a Thursday, so you're going to be posting your next update on, or the next part of the series on whatever it is that you're talking about. So for an aesthetic practitioner, this might look like a overrated versus underrated series where you rate treatments on whether you think they're overrated or underrated, or a skincare series where you rate different skincare products. So for example, you could rate vitamin C's in one video, then retinoids in the next, SPFs in the next one, neck creams in the next one. So you have a series of videos where you're rating skincare products and people come to connect that with you. If, for example, you really enjoy doing a specific type of treatment, for example, lower face filler, chin, jawline, rejuvenation, you could do a series about jowls treatments or jawline treatments where you talk about the different ways that you can approach this area of the face in different videos, or different ways that the lower face ages and how you might treat each one in different videos. Or you could do an under eye series where you talk about different things that make the under eyes look tired and how you might approach those different things, dark circles, crepiness, hollowing. You could even do like eyelid laxity, whatever it is. You could do a little series on an area of the face and how you might approach different concerns. You could do an ugly truth series where you bust myths and correct bad advice. You could do a stop doing this series where you call out common mistakes that people make and advise them on how to get it right. You could do an aesthetic diaries series where you share your own treatment experiences for transparency. So if you're going through your own kind of treatment journey at the moment, maybe you're struggling with something like pigmentation or even acne, and I've seen practitioners talk about their own experiences with acne and how it can feel really vulnerable to talk about, because you as a practitioner, or, naturally, I think practitioners feel kind of hypocritical when they're experiencing their own human skin concerns and problems, because, they treat skin day in, day out, and then they end up with skin concerns themselves. And I've seen practitioners talk about that before, and it goes down very well with people. It's very human, very relatable. So, if you are dealing with something like acne or pigmentation or melasma, you could do a series showing your journey to treating that, the skincare you're using at home, the different treatments that you're having, and kind of take people along on a journey through a series of content. Or maybe, you're getting married, or you're prepping for something big going on in your life, and you show people your own treatment journey to prepping for that said event. You could do an opinionated or controversial series, for example, a Worth the Hype series, where you talk about whether treatments or products deserve their popularity, or a trend or trap series where you call out fads that don't live up to results, or a hard truth series where you talk about blunt opinions that more people need to hear. I could talk about series all day. I love them, and I think they're really, really good to do, and I think that they will take over more in 2026 because they give people advice or your thoughts as an expert and your opinions in a very quick, snappy, engaging way. If you were, for example, going to do a series rating different treatments for the lower face or different products, so for example, talking about your rating different retinoids, and that could be a mixture of high street retinoids and in clinic cosmeceutical grade retinoids, you could have somebody calling out those retinoids from behind the camera. So saying names of products and you kind of giving your opinion in a sentence or rating them out of 10. And the same with a lot of those other series that I've mentioned. Like if you were to do a myth busting series, you could have people call out myths about certain treatments from behind the camera. Maybe you could do a myth series and dispel myths about different treatments in each video. So you could have somebody behind the camera calling out dermal filler myths for one video, and you kind of saying, whether it's true or false, and giving a little quick one sentence overview for each. So just think about how you can integrate this into your content strategy and make them quite snappy and engaging, because I think that's what people want more of this year, is content that's very kind of quick to consume. Although on the other side of that, platforms are kind of suggesting that they want to see more longer form content, because, for example, reels keep increasing the reels length that you can post. But I think it's just trying and testing different things is the most important thing, and finding what really resonates with people and what works for you, because everybody is so different. But these signature series, I think, will be a key part of what people want to see in 2026. So definitely think about how you can be integrating them into your strategy. When you build a series, when people recognize you, when your content feels like something that they want to return to, you stop relying on the algorithm to save you, and you start creating your own momentum and giving people a reason to come back and consume more of your content. And that really is quite powerful. So yes, signature series definitely should be on your to-do list this year. I also think that it's important for clinics and practitioners to understand that the way people might make their decisions about whether or not to book a consultation with you is slightly different to how it once was. And we have social media and AI and all of those types of things to thank for this, because people now have so many other places that they can go to ask questions or to find out information before making a final decision. So while there still will be people out there who see one piece of your content and then message you off the back of it, or go to your link in bio and look at your availability in your diary off the back of it, for a lot of people, it's a very long journey to get them from first thinking about treatment to booking specifically with you. Let's not forget that people are using Instagram and TikTok as SEO platforms to a lot like we use Google. So they might be searching lip filler Manchester into Instagram to find clinics, or Profilo Manchester, polynucleotides Manchester, London, whatever it is, into Instagram or TikTok, and then looking at clinics that way. And that's how they find you. So you need to make sure that you've got keywords, that you're using these keywords that people are searching for in your content, in your captions, in the words that you're saying in your videos, in your bio, and that bold name at the top of your bio. If you can have some keywords in there, brilliant. I've done episodes on this before, so do go back and listen. I've also done episodes on SEO, so do go back and listen to those. But there are a lot more treatments out there. The public are more aware of treatments than ever, and more aware of what treatments do and the names of treatments, polynucleotides, exosomes, all these types of things that people hear about. People listen to podcasts where they're talked about. They look at forums where they're talked about. They ask ChatGPT what the best treatments are for certain concerns, or what the best clinics are in certain cities. So people aren't just going to Google anymore, typing in fillers near me and then researching clinics that way. They're asking ChatGPT for advice. They're looking at forums for advice. They're looking maybe at local Facebook groups and communities for advice. They're listening to podcasts and listening to people talk about certain treatments. And, the way people are doing their research into treatments is changing. And there are certain things you can do, like I say, making sure your content is SEO optimized. When people are searching on Instagram, you are more likely to come up and they're likely to find you that way. And also optimizing all of your digital activities online. So your Google business profile, your website, your social media channels, in a way that will ensure ChatGPT is likely to recommend you as a clinic in your local area when people ask, because this is a key way that people are finding businesses now. I started to see it and notice it last year, and I think that is only going to continue to grow as AI becomes more and more common in our day-to-day life. So again, I have talked about this in previous episodes, so do go back and listen to those, but ensuring that your kind of digital presence is optimized in a way that will ensure ChatGPT recommends you is really important. And it looks for things like awards you've won, reviews. So, making sure that you're asking people for reviews, because the more reviews you have, the more likely Google is to list you higher. Like I say, your Google business profile is really well optimized. Your website is really well optimized. You're posting really expert, informative, educational content on social media, and you're being consistent on social media. That's more likely to make sure ChatGPT recommends you. So doing all of these things is really important to ensure that you are optimizing yourself so that you are more likely going to appear at those different touch points that people might come into contact with as they do their research into clinics and treatments. So I think a lot of people think that Instagram and TikTok and social media is for awareness. Their website is for, further research and booking, and that is it. But real people do not behave like that, and more consumer behavior is changing. People bounce around, they check and they double check, they look for reassurance, they ask ChatGPT, they look at forums. So the brands that win are not necessarily the ones with the prettiest Instagram feeds, but they are the ones that show up wherever someone is in their decision making. So this means that your TikToks answer common questions that your patients have. Your Instagram shows your face, your work, your experiences, your standards, your personality. Your website reassures them about safety and experience. Your reviews confirm that they are not taking a risk and that people have good experiences with you. All of these touch points work together to build one feeling, which is, I trust this clinic. You cannot force someone down a funnel anymore. You have to meet them wherever they are in their thinking. And in aesthetics, as we know, that thinking is emotional, cautious, and deeply personal. So the real strategy for 2026 is not to push harder in one place. It's to make sure that wherever a potential patient lands, they see the same values, the same quality, and the same person behind the brand. And, thinking about getting the most out of people wherever they go in their journey. So if they land on your website, they're met with a pop-up that encourages them to sign up to your mailing list, and that touch point appears frequently in different areas of your website, so on treatment pages, on blogs, as a call to action, that kind of thing, on your homepage, and encourages people to sign up to your mailing list so that you are making the most out of everyone who comes to your website, pushing that in your call to action. So maybe having a lead magnet that encourages people to sign up to your mailing list, and having that as the call to action in some of your social media posts, because not everyone is ready to book, but encouraging them to sign up to your mailing list by giving them something of value, like a guide on how to pick a safe practitioner, on a guide on the best treatments for X, whatever it might be, will help people move over to your mailing list, where you can connect with them a little bit more directly through your email marketing and push them through that sales funnel. And also ensures that they don't come away from your website or come off of your social media and then never see you again. I also think that something that will be quite big in 2026 are private spaces. So a lot of people are spending more time in private spaces. They want more of a community feel when it comes to the brands that they follow, that they spend their money with. And again, private spaces are a good way to connect with people a little bit more directly. When you put a post out on social media, it's not guaranteed for everybody who follows you to see that. You know that not everyone who follows you is going to see that. But if you have private spaces like a broadcast channel, for example, or close friend stories that you add people to, that ensures that when you put something out, they are quite likely to see it. So from a brand point of view, this is incredibly powerful. In a broadcast channel or private Instagram close friends list or community space, there's no algorithm deciding who sees you. Everyone gets the message and you are not fighting for that attention. You are speaking directly to your audience. And it also builds a place where people can stay connected to you over time. And like I said earlier, that is where loyalty comes from. So when someone feels part of your world, not just another viewer of your content, they stop price shopping, they stop comparing you to every other clinic, and they feel more attached naturally. So in 2026, the smartest clinics will not just be posting into their feed, they will be creating spaces where their patients can stay close to them. So that might be a broadcast channel, a WhatsApp list, a private Instagram story, or a small community on another platform around skin education, for example. You know, you could start a community group on a platform like School or Circle, where you can build something around skin education, menopause and skin, acne, regenerative treatments, long-term skin health, where you update and post regularly to give people, I guess, high quality in a way, more in depth in a way, content than they might find on your social media. But it's really good for creating community in places like that, where they can then ask questions, or they might see something and then reach out directly to you and ask you a question. But if we go back to the kinds of things that are available easily on Instagram, you've got broadcast channels, which you can use to share tips or announce new treatments or give early access to appointments or announce last minute availability or explain things that you wouldn't necessarily post publicly. It feels like being on the inside, and people join because they want to stay close to you. So I might do another episode specifically on more private spaces and how to create more of a community kind of feel. And then you've got your close friend stories, which you can add followers to, and you can use it for early booking links, new treatment, trials, model demo days, personal updates, things going on behind the scenes in the clinic, and it gives a little bit more of a personal feel to the stories because it's only being shown to the people on your close friends list. Also, the people on your close friends list are more likely to see your stories higher up. So obviously when you go to your Instagram app and you go to the homepage, you see all those little circles at the top of the screen. Those are everyone's stories. It's not possible, depending on how many people you follow, but most people follow like at least a few hundred people. So you're not always going to see everyone's stories. But if you're on someone's close friends list, that story is more likely to be closer to the front. So if you've got, you know, loads of your patients and followers in your close friends list, they're more likely to be shown those close friend stories at the front, and therefore they're not going to miss them. So it just gives an extra layer of kind of guarantee that people are going to be shown your content when you want them to see it most. You can do a similar thing on WhatsApp as well with WhatsApp broadcast channels, and you can add patients and you can set them up so that people can't actually write messages in there, but it's just a broadcast channel for you to kind of send updates or things that you want your patients to know, last minute appointments, model demo days, whatever it is, events, things like that, so that people are kind of included in that community and they're the first to hear about anything that you've got coming up. Okay, so before I talk about how to give your Instagram a little bit of an audit, a little bit of a glow up to get it in the right place to really be optimized for the year ahead, I just want to touch on some of the things that we need to stop posting in 2026. Because a lot of people, a lot of businesses are still posting in a way that made sense 5 years ago, but isn't necessarily going to drive you forwards now. Okay, so one that is a personal pet hate of mine is awareness days. Now, there are awareness days that are going to be super relevant for you as an associate practitioner. So we've got like National Nurses Day and Acne Awareness Month, Rosacea Awareness Month, Menopause Awareness Month, Melanoma Awareness Month, Skin Cancer Awareness Day, International Women's Day is another key one. Those awareness days are fine because they are really connected to what you do. So absolutely, by all means, integrate those into your content strategy. Mental Health Awareness Day, you could create a personal post around that. Even things like Menopause Awareness Day, if that's something you're personally experiencing yourself, you could use that and put a personal angle on it. And that will probably go down very, very well. But jumping on everything just because it's an awareness day is not the approach to take with social media. You want people to know what to expect when they see your content or when they go to your page. They want to know that you're the person to go to for tips around aging well, or what treatments really work, or what to do if they're noticing that they're looking tired or they're noticing prominent signs of aging. You don't want them to become confused because the messaging that you're putting out with is kind of a bit all over the place. So stick to things that are directly connected to what you offer and who you are as a person when it comes to awareness days. If there is a specific awareness day that's not necessarily related to aesthetics or skin or aging, but you can put a personal angle on it and talk about your own experience with something, that's absolutely fine. But just don't jump on everything because it's an awareness day. The same goes for what I call filler posts, not filler in the way that we know it. We're not dermal fillers, but filler posts. Posts just to fill the gaps, like Hello March, or, at the start of the month, or Happy Valentine's Day. You could, if you wanted to, at the start of a month, do a roundup of some of your best moments. This can make quite a nice personal post from the month before. So a February roundup. And you have like a series of photos that sum up your month with a little bit of context for each. And, you could put some personal in there, some work related if you went to some events, had things going on in clinic, whatever it might be. But doing that once a month, just to give people a little bit of an overview of what the previous month looked like for you, that can be quite a nice personal post. Valentine's Day, you could talk about your perfect couple skincare products, what your perfect duos, skincare products or treatment combinations as like a kind of Valentine's themed post. You want to make it relate to you, but you don't just want to post those kind of filler posts that, like Happy Monday, or, things that take up space but don't really give any substance or value to the viewer and your audience. Remember, everything that you put out represents you and represents your brand. And so you don't just want to be putting things out for the sake of it. You really want to be putting thought and strategy into everything that you're posting. And the same goes for graphics and photos. So if you're just posting a one slide graphic, for example, like a testimonial graphic, those kind of Canva quotes with 5 stars, they feel a little bit generic now. And I think those kind of one slide kind of posts where it's just one thing, whether that's a photo of you with the caption underneath or a testimonial graphic, they don't really perform as well. It's not really what people want to see on Instagram anymore. When it comes to testimonials, what I like to do quite well is integrate them into reels, or, if you can have a patient talking to camera as a testimonial, that's even better. Or you could have a carousel post with the front slide with a kind of hook at the start saying something like, what our patients have had to say about us recently, or, messages I love to receive as an aesthetics practitioner, or love letters from my patients, whatever feels on brand for you. And then you've kind of got a series in that carousel posts, slide after slide, of some nice feedback you've had. And if you can pair some of them with some before and after photos, again, even better. But carousels and reels are really kind of the top performing content formats these days. When it comes to carousel posts, they're more powerful because they give more substance, people spend more time looking at them, and therefore the algorithm is more likely to push them out to more people because people are spending more time looking at them. Whereas if it's just like one slide, one thing, people might just glance at it and then scroll on. And also with carousel posts, if people don't engage with it the first time they see it in their home feed, the algorithm will show it to them again on the second slide. So it gives people more of an opportunity to engage. Then again, if they don't engage with it the second time around, they'll show it to them again on the third slide. So it will scroll along for them. So you've got ample opportunity there to grab people's attention and get them to actually look at your post and engage with it. Whereas with a single slide graphic or photo, people see it once. If they don't engage with it, they'll never see it again. So, really thinking about your kind of content formats, and just because something might be easy to whack together, like a photo with a nice pretty caption, doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to be posting. And I always think it's better to post nothing than just for the sake of it. I also think perfectly designed posts, anything with stock imagery, absolute no-no. If you've listened to any of my episodes before, you'll have heard me talk about this a lot. Absolute no to stock imagery. Get yourself a professional brand shoot if you haven't already. It will make such a difference to how people engage with your content and therefore how quickly you grow on social media. And stay away from Canva templates when it comes to carousel posts. You might use a Canva template as a starting point and then make it more on brand, but you don't want every single post to look really, really different or to feel different. You kind of want to have your own design, a few templates that you rotate through, and you obviously change the content within them and the photos and things. But I would really move away from Canva, very, very generic Canva templates, because it's much harder to stay consistent if you're using Canva templates. You can get some really beautiful template packs from websites. There's a Tonic Shop, which I really love, or get a brand designer to put a few template options together for you that you can then rotate through. And as I say, change the content, change the photos within them. And it feels very different on every post, but you've got a starting point that's consistent, that's on brand, that's not going to be the same as somebody else who's just got a template off of Canva. So it's going to look very kind of original to you. AI ChatGPT scripts, another thing. Let's leave that in 2025. I have noticed quite an increase of people very obviously using ChatGPT to put together scripts for their videos. I know that creating videos is time consuming, but if social media was easy, growing social media was easy, everybody would be doing it and everybody would be doing it right. I think if you do need to use ChatGPT to put a script together for you, give it as much input as you can, like write a very in-depth kind of messy script to give it as a starting point so it really gets a feel for your tone and what you want to say. Because when I listen to somebody on video who has very obviously used ChatGPT to write a script and then they've just read that out on the camera, it's really off-putting, I think, and it's very, very hard to connect to. It comes across very robotic and it's not engaging because and I know that filming video content is so hard for a lot of people and it's time consuming and people overthink it and they don't know what to say. When the camera turns on, they clam up and their brain feels empty. But if you can have a script or put some bullet points together yourself and kind of film and stop and start as you go rather than just read a script, your video will come across so much better. I do think if you are reading a script, try and be quite aware that you're reading a script and that it could very easily sound robotic, and try and talk as you normally would speak and emphasize with your hands and things like that, because otherwise it looks strange to the person viewing it. As humans, we know what looks normal and what sounds normal when you're kind of having a conversation with somebody. And I think when somebody's reading a script or they're reading something that's just come off of ChatGPT, that is very obvious to most people and it isn't going to help you connect with anybody. It isn't going to help your message land and resonate with people, and actually people will switch off to it. They're not going to watch that video for the whole way through. So yes, I would say be very, very conscious of this. If you do need to use AI to put together some scripts for you, because that's the only way that you're going to ever have time to do it, you just need to be really conscious that that isn't going to sound AI and it's going to sound human and on brand, and the tone is going to be right as much as possible. And if that means writing out a messy starting point to then feed to ChatGPT, then, so be it. You probably do need to, the AI is not designed and shouldn't be used in a way that it completely replaces you as a human being. You still need to kind of put that input in first to get the best out of it, I think, so that it's not going to sound robotic and strange. And I think in general, that's another thing that I would say in 2026, people are becoming more and more aware of AI content. People are getting quite tired of it already. And people actively want content that feels authentic and feels human. Like, we're craving that on social media. And I think the businesses that avoid using AI or are very conscious about how they're using it so that their content stays sounding like them and stays sounding human will be the ones that do the best. In 2026, attention will go to content that feels like a real person talking to another real person. if your content, the posts that you're putting out, feel like they could belong to any clinic, any brand, anybody else, because they're not personal, they're not human enough, they sound AI, then they just will not cut through and you won't get the results that you're looking for. Okay, so to wrap up, I want to touch on how to make your Instagram converts in 2026. I have done lots of episodes kind of around this before, but bearing everything I've said in mind, and if we just quickly run through how to optimize your bio and things like that to make sure that you're in a really strong place, because I think January is a perfect time to do a little bit of an audit of all of your online spaces. So your Instagram, your TikTok, your Google business profile, your website, any spaces that people potentially find you. Now is a good time to just look at them and make sure that everything is on there as it should be. All of your details are up to date and you're optimizing them in the best way. So first things first, on your Instagram, on your TikTok, on any social media platforms that you're on, your face beats your logo every single time. So nobody books an injectable appointment because they love your branding. Nobody feels safe because your logo looks nice. People book because they feel like they know you. And I find clinic pages on Instagram, TikTok, wherever, social media pages are much easier to grow and to connect with people when you have a face in the profile picture, because people will connect with people. So you don't want your social media platforms to feel corporate or overly branded. You want to make them feel really human. So the easiest way to do this and set the tone right from the get-go and to help people connect with you is to have a person in your profile picture. So whether that's you as a clinic owner, a team picture, whatever it is, make sure there are people visible in your picture and get rid of the logo. You can put the logo on your before and after pictures, maybe in your carousel posts, but just make sure the first thing people see when they interact with your brand online is your face. The second thing that makes or breaks conversion is your bio. So most clinic bios fall into two traps. They're either quite boring or they're very salesy, and both kill connection very quickly. So boring is things like injectables and skin, or like listing all of your treatments, or I help women feel confident. That could describe anybody. And it feels like being pitched before someone even knows you, when you're just listing all the treatments that you offer. It doesn't help you stand out. It doesn't tell people what they can expect from you as an injector or a practitioner or a clinic. So the bios that work now nurture first. They tell someone who you are for, and what you stand for before they try to sell anything. So they sound like a person, not a brochure or a leaflet. They have tone, they have opinions, they have a point of view. So think about something like helping you understand what really works when it comes to skin and aging well, or I specialise in natural results for women who hate obvious work. You instantly know if that is you or not, and that is what makes somebody stay. The easiest way to write your bio is to imagine you are introducing yourself at a party, not your job title, your list of services, but what you do for other people and how you help other people. Then add one simple step underneath, like booking, waitlist, or consultation, to give people an action to take. So book a consultation below, and that kind of leads people to the link in bio, or DM skin to start your journey, something like that. And then obviously you've got your highlights. So the old way of using highlights was kind of having a highlight for every single treatment that you offered. But I don't think I've ever gone to anyone's page and sat and gone through all of their highlights. Highlights should answer things like who you are, what it's like to be your patient, what makes you different, and gives people a bit of an introduction to you when they first land to your profile if they're trying to learn about you quickly, but also that gives people helpful, relevant information they might be looking for. For example, how to make a booking or your price list. So rename them to things like Start Here, where you've got a highlight at the front where you want people to click when they first land on your page, and that tells them a little bit more about who you are as a person, what you believe in, what people can expect from you in your content, what you offer as a practitioner. You might have client stories, behind the scenes, your approach, education, and then inside them mix real things. You talking, you working, you explaining your thoughts, your opinions. You might link them to posts about specific treatments where you shared your opinion about things, or posts where people can get to know you a little bit better, so that when someone taps through, it feels like they have spent 10 minutes with you, not 10 minutes scrolling through screenshots or before and after photos of different treatments, which, like I say, people just aren't going to look at. If you have 20 highlights on your page for different treatments that you offer, no one is going to look at those. So You really want to be thinking about how you can give people the most value here. If there is one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's that the changes happening in social media right now are not about doing more, they're about doing different. In 2026, Instagram isn't going to reward the businesses that post the most, jump on every trend, or keep redesigning their branding, have the prettiest feed. It's going to reward the clinics that feel familiar, trustworthy, and easy to recognise. The ones that show up in a way that feels consistent and real, whose faces they remember, who post, personal content and show the faces behind the brand, who really think about how to create content that resonates and connects with their audience. Your audience doesn't necessarily want more content, but they want clarity. They want to feel like they know who you are before they ever walk through your door. They want to feel safe choosing you in a sea of other clinics who all offer the same treatments. And the only way you can get there is by being human, by showing your thinking, by letting people see how you work, what you care about, what makes you different, your own experiences, how they can connect you as a person. And if you keep trying to win with old tactics, generic posts, faceless branding, chasing reach, it's only going to feel harder and harder. And you will feel like, like I said at the beginning of this episode, that you're doing more for less return. But if you adapt to how people are actually behaving on social media now, if you build something recognizable, personal, consistent, you give yourself an advantage that no algorithm update or social media platform can take away. And that's what the shift is really about. I really hope this episode has been helpful. I hope it's given you some clarity and has also inspired you to do something different on social media this week, whether that's, introducing a signature series or getting a team to do some training content, or talking a little bit about your own journey to becoming an aesthetic practitioner, just sharing something personal to you with your audience. Whatever it is, I really, really hope that this has given you the encouragement to do it. Like I say, if you've enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to my podcast for more episodes like this. And don't forget to leave me a little review. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.